Hello, I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. I'm excited to have this gentleman in the studio with me today, very familiar face in this community, certainly throughout the state of Georgia as it relates to higher education. He is none other than President Dr. Anthony Parker of Albany Technical College. How are you?
I'm well this morning.
Good,
how are you?
Good. I'm
and
fine.
Congratulations, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parker. That means so much. You played a huge role in that and allowing me to conduct my research study at Albany Technical College. Learned a lot.
To help.
It
Happy
was
to do
oh
our
my
part,
gosh,
yeah.
you're absolutely amazing. You and your wonderful team. I say this often to guests, and somehow it's been such a long time in terms of as long as I've been doing this and have not had you on the show. So that has been something that I'm happy to rectify today. And what I love about these opportunities is educating the viewers about the individual. As much as we think that we know, there's so much to learn about you. So before we started, I said, I'm going to start, if you will, with the end in mind, and then we'll kind of work backwards. Tell the viewers, or I'm curious to learn, did you always know that this is something that you wanted to do, which was to be president of a college?
I absolutely did not.
Okay.
And when I went to college, I actually went there thinking that I would get stronger and faster and I would be the next Gale Sayers at South Carolina State. But that didn't work out. So I was able to get a degree in accounting, and I went to work in business for a few years. And I was married. We moved to Augusta, Georgia, and we were going to have to move back to North Carolina. And we were expecting our second child. So I accepted a position teaching at Augusta Technical College. I thought for a year, and that would have been in 1979. And either I found something that I was passionate about and liked to do, or I can't tell time. So one of the two. But it's been a great opportunity. And even then, I didn't know I would want to be a college president, but opportunities became available, and I'd prepared, I'd say, to compete for those positions. And then one became available here in Albany.
Let's go back to the statement that you made in terms of the preparation. Oftentimes, we think it's just a matter of getting taking the formal track, so earning all of the degrees, and it is so much more than that. Speak to our viewers, particularly our students, in terms of being a well-rounded individual, building relationships, and anything else that has factored into your success and certainly your longevity at the institution and serving in the role.
I attended an HBCU, South Carolina State, and when I was there, we were attempting to help students compete for opportunities. We knew that affirmative action may get our foot in the door, but it would not assure success. I was a member of a group at the business school that was preparing people to be business leaders. And the indication was that you had to get better credentials, more credentials, stronger credentials. You had to take them seriously to compete for jobs. So that stuck even when I left the business world and decided to go to graduate school. That a master's degree would not be enough. You had to choose a lane, decided what you want to do in that lane, and then the graduate work that you needed to do needed to fit the job that you wanted to have, and then you needed to choose the positions you accepted so that they would ladder and lead to other opportunities. So once I got involved in higher education, I had a plan, And eventually I had an opportunity to go to the Institute of Educational Management at Harvard, and I guess then was when I thought about the possibility of being a college president. And I had chosen the two-year college lane, and was happy that I did. It was good for me, good for my career, good for the contributions that I could make. So I would say I did have a plan, and I worked the plan and had good results.
Indeed, indeed. I'd like to also discuss, you have worn many hats while serving as president. There was a stint where you actually served at the state level simultaneously as president as well. Can you speak to our viewers about that?
I was interim assistant commissioner for adult education for about a period of 8 months. We had some turnover at the then Department of Technical and Adult Education, now the technical college system. And Mike Vollmer, who was a former president of ABAC, had just become our commissioner, and he asked me to come to Atlanta for 6 to 12 months as they reorganized and prepared to continue funding from the American Council on Education for Adult Education and GED testing.
Yes.
So I had an opportunity to do that for a year. Challenging and rewarding. I liked it, but I honestly miss being at a college. I miss students, being in an office suite and not getting to talk to students, and faculty was hard on me. It was a little depressing some days.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. You missed home. You missed home. One of the things that I've always admired about technical institutions is that, particularly as it relates to you all training, developing students with their specific academic discipline, but then there's that other hand-in-glove piece, if you will, where you're also teaching them those soft skills so that they can immediately go back into the workplace. And I know that a lot of other institutions are challenged with that, and industry comes back and says, although they are excellent as it relates to what they've learned in terms of biochemistry or English or accounting, that there's that soft skills that's lacking. But Albany Technical College has been very intentional with that. Speak to the importance and the value.
Our entire system believes that that's important. We've adopted a work ethics curriculum that goes with every program, where punctuality, professionalism, the things that we think of that some may say were just good manners, that maybe your mother taught you, that you use in your personal life, but they do carry over to your professional life and to your business life. We evaluate our students on work ethics in every class. On their transcript, there is a grade that indicates how well they can do what technical skill they have been educated to do. An associate degree nurse or a electronics technician. But along with that is a work ethics grade from every class that they've taken. We encourage our we encourage our employers to look at that work ethics grade and hire the person first who had the better combination of actual skill set acquirement and work ethics. And that's given our students a belief and knowledge that they will be evaluated on the work ethics that they indicate that they have while they're in school. And it also encourages our faculty to emulate good work ethics to students, since we know that it's difficult to grade somebody on something that you don't understand yourself. And it gives our community an opportunity to say, these students come to us with these technical skills, but I can expect that they'll come on time, come Monday, work till Friday, be cooperative, work as a part of a team, and all of that is extremely important. But I think it's a group of skills that should be adapted and taught at every level. Indeed. I think it will make it'll make students perform better. You want to make sure that you get the best first job that you can get to begin your career. And then you want to make sure that you're as successful on that first job as you can be. Although the organization may keep you for a long period of time, you want to make sure that you progress and track forward as quickly as you can. And I think the work ethics are going to help students regardless of whether they're getting a university education or a technical education or even high school education.
Yes, yes, I would agree. I would love to know, how has your informal training, we always talk about, and that's just the nature of the business that we're in, the formal training that we received. How has the informal training of Anthony Parker impacted your role, particularly as president?
I'm the son of a librarian, and as a child, that was not something that made me happy. Before I could go and play basketball or baseball in the afternoon, I had to walk past the library where my mother worked, and I had to stop and do my homework. Obviously, I got my homework done, but also it exposed me to books and magazines that I would not have been interested in if I were not there. So before the internet, there was Albany, the Saturday Evening Post, things to stimulate me like that. I remember the cover of the Saturday Evening Post with Ruby Bridges when she was integrating the schools in New Orleans and not understanding what the cover meant. That you could see Ruby, you could see the arms and feet of the men, and you could see that they had on badges. And I remember asking, my parents what it meant. And it, I guess, started me thinking about things and reading things and getting as much information as I could and then attempting to determine what it meant. So I think my formal education was valuable, but as much my informal education, being a son of a librarian and then attempting to make sense of how things are interwoven and what it meant. Thinking that Ruby Bridges at that point was my age and that I did not have to get walked into school by U.S. Marshals, but understanding that I went to a segregated school and making me think about what would happen at the point in time where my school was integrated in the little town, South Carolina, that I grew up in. So those are the kinds of things that were part of my informal education that I've stuck with.
Okay. I'm going to ask you two questions, and you decide which one you want to answer first. In your service in the role of president at Albany Technical College, what is your greatest success story, and what has been your greatest disappointment?
The greatest success is graduation. I know you wanted one event, but if the other things don't work well, you do not have an opportunity to have your faculty support and graduate thousands of students. We are an average size technical college in the state of Georgia when compared to the other 22. But we're in the 90th percentile in terms of the number of graduates that we produce, and we're at the 99th percentile in placement of those graduates in field and related field. And we have known the disposition of 100% of our graduates each year for the last 10 years. So regardless of the term, we know what they're doing and their place within 30 days of graduation. And we know that 77% of them work within a 30-mile radius of downtown Albany. So graduation slash impact on economic development is what we are proudest of. What my greatest disappointment is that I know that we are the heart of the 2nd Congressional District of Georgia. 2nd Congressional District is somewhere between the 6th and the 18th poorest congressional district in the United States. To know that we have the potential to employ additional 300 to 600 graduates from Albany Tech a year, and I'm not sure what level of contribution above and beyond the level that they produce Albany State could produce a year, in that we have good jobs that go unfilled by people from this community.
Yes.
Who we know if they stayed in the community and went to work, they would make a contribution here, eventually buy homes here, buy cars here, buy durable goods, etc. So we've not reached as many people. I think it's our responsibility to reach.
Sure.
That'd be the greatest disappointment.
I guess I did my dissertation topic with the focus was on Albany Technical College, and when you look back in retrospect, or I do, my mind's eye was the stars were lining up some years ago, even before I started this doctoral process. Because I recall being it was actually at Albany Technical College. It was a meeting, and this is actually, I know exactly when it was. It was when Dr. Dunning, Dr. Jones, Dr. Mosley, and you all forged this great think tank, if you will, in trying to accelerate education and addressing the needs in this community. You said something that has always stuck with me in terms of the demographic that comes to the doors at Albany Technical College and the literacy level. And it absolutely just shook me. And you said that oftentimes they come reading at an 8th grade average level. So then I began to process, because I understand your graduation numbers and the success rate. So there is a lot that you do in a short period of time. But what you said is that basically we meet them where they are and get them where they need to be.
That's the only option that we have if we're going to make a long-term difference in people's lives. Those individuals who come to us with a high school diploma or GED and are prepared to do college work are not the ones who need the additional support and help. Yes. And we have several learning communities that connect to our regular programs. First, we have the adult education program. We wanted that program when it became available because we wanted to be able to encourage people not only to get the high school diploma or GED, but to transition to collegiate work, whether here or Albany State or somewhere else, because they need to work harder. They have to jump through some additional hoops to get to the place where people who are prepared are. If a student comes to us and is not reading or writing or computing at a particular level, we have an academic achievement center where, except in a few programs, we can co-register that student with their regular coursework so that they don't have to sit in developmental studies and churn. You mentioned earlier starting with the end in mind. There was a lady at South Carolina State whose name was Daisy Johnson who forced us to do that. Forced me to cut my hair. I don't have much to be concerned about now, and not to and how to present myself, how to prepare for a job that I was going to compete for as a senior back when I was a freshman. And it was required. It wasn't optional.
Okay.
You didn't think about it. You were required to do it. And that stuck. So we have a career center where we help students begin to work on their graduation portfolio during their first week of class.
Excellent.
So if they're going to be here 1 year or 2 years, we want them to understand that when they fill this portfolio, they can take everything in it and use it to compete for a job. Also, we believe in self-advisement for students, but students don't always advise themselves appropriately. We don't want to take away the options for students making choices about classes, majors, when to do what time to take a class. But I know that I had to go to summer school as an undergraduate between my junior and senior year if I was going to graduate on time, because I'd made some poor choices in self-advisement as a student. We want to reduce the time between the first day of class and the last day of class, so we have an advisement center. Now, adult education came as federal funding. Those other three learning communities came as a part of grants that we hopefully develop some opportunity to be self-sufficient, because we want to remove every barrier that we can.
Yes.
We say that the only rigor we want the student to have to address, unless they volunteer and get in trouble, are the rigors of the curriculum.
Okay.
And removing all the barriers and reducing the time, compressing the time between the first day and the last day.
Okay. Before we get ready to wrap up, let's learn a little bit more about you and what you gravitate to as it relates to stepping away. And I don't know if you can ever fully step away from your job. I know it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. But there's, as we learned, there's that need to rejuvenate. I know golf is certainly on the agenda on a regular basis, but that quiet time spent, and I'm sure with the mother who is a librarian, that passion and love for reading certainly was instilled at an early age. So what book do you find yourself going to often, or is there a genre that you prefer to escape, if you will?
I love anything that B.B. Moore Campbell wrote.
Really?
Yeah, and,
interesting.
She was my favorite author of fiction, and I have a early edition of a book of hers that she signed. I think I've read. Let's see, Singing in the Comeback Choir,
Yes.
Your Blues, It Ain't Like Mine.
Brothers and Sisters.
Brothers is everything
Yes,
there,
yes.
and I love the way she wrote. The characters got more complicated and more interactive the further along the book that you read, so you had to pay attention
Yes.
to what was in the earlier chapters. And I like to spend time with people who are attempting to progress and do difficult things, because I think I learned from how they address certain problems and issues, and it doesn't matter how old you get. I think you can learn from individuals. I think we were both in our 50s, and this is just one example. And General Williams was here. There were things about his leadership style that I benefited from, even though I'd already reached the goal of becoming a college president, and just some time to relax. I'm fortunate in the respect that a lot of my students don't spend the night, so at 11 o'clock, I'm not worried about what's going on campus.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
It makes a difference.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but
yes.
I love what I do, and I would recommend higher education as a career to almost anybody.
Okay. Well, you certainly have demonstrated the benefits and the success of it, and how it can be enriching to the individual's life. Before we wrap up, here's your last and final question, Dr. Parker. If you had an opportunity to invite anyone on a national scale to visit and experience Albany Technical College, A, it's a two-part question, and then B, serve in the role of president for a day, who would that individual be?
Oh, wow. Would it have to be the same individual?
No, not at all. Answer
all right.
however you see fit.
The person that I would like to invite to visit Albany Technical College would be our former President Barack Obama. I have thought that he literally reeks integrity. There's been no point, no picture, no television interview that I have seen him make where I would be thought that he wasn't genuine.
Sure.
And that I would like him to meet our students, because I'd like in faculty, because of all of the people that I know, I'd like for him to be proud of what we do. All right. And the other part was?
So the part B is, what individual on a national or international scale would you then invite to serve in your role as president of, we'll give them just a day. I don't know that they could probably handle any more than because of what you accomplish on a regular basis. But if they had an opportunity to serve as Dr. Anthony Parker president, who would that individual be?
I would like for any governor, every governor, and the current governor to have that role once or twice during the time that they are in office. I think between the time we graduate from college and we assume a position like that, we forget some things, or we maybe didn't understand some things, because undergraduates go to school in a bubble, and they graduate, they apply what they know. But I do believe that if the governor of any state had an opportunity to look at some of the responsibilities we were charged with, I think the type of support would be a little different. I'm not saying that we would necessarily be funded better, but there'd be an understanding of what the role and responsibilities of higher education, whether it's at the technical college or community college or university level, is, because we're that intellectual capital. It's got to be developed and nourished if we're going to lead the world. I was surprised at the University of South Carolina to see as many foreign students in graduate school that were there, and I came to the conclusion that they were there for a reason. They didn't come to Columbia, South Carolina to spend the rest of their lives.
Right.
They came to a university in the United States to take back intellectual capital. Nourish it, cherish, respect it. But on the other hand, the people who are responsible need to be accountable to the taxpayers and to the individuals in executive positions. So, I'd like to have the governor spend a day or a week and really look at those issues, because we can't drop the ball with young people and expect us to be in the same place where we were before.
Sure. I've known you certainly since my time here, and I've been in higher ed is going on 15 years, and resided here in Albany, and just over time then had an opportunity to work with you in many different facets. And so I've learned along the as I grow older, the importance of taking advantage of each moment and opportunity. So I'm always, what can I learn from this individual up close and personal or at a distance? And so I've taken many lessons away in terms of your leadership at Albany Technical College, and then your service in the role. One of the things that I'm still working on as an individual in higher ed is the importance of how you respond non-verbally to a moment. And I've continue to have great respect and admiration for your poise and your demeanor. Despite the difficulty of the moment, you are always consistently professional. I lack terribly in terms of a poker face. It is always difficult to read what Dr. Anthony Parker is thinking, but your response is always very well thought out. It is delivered with a voice of reason. The list is long, and so if you could teach a class, I promise I will sit at the front of and listen very attentively. What do you attribute that to? Again, much admiration and respect.
That certainly wasn't born.
Okay.
I didn't have it.
It evolved.
It evolved, and there have been some times when I should have taken a more reasoned approach especially when I was younger. What I've learned is, in a difficult situation, regardless, own it. If it's there with you, somebody wants you to own it. That doesn't mean that at some point in time you won't delegate how that situation is going to be resolved and responded to. But if it's related to Albany Tech, I own it. And I try to be respectful of the person who has the problem or the issue. If I don't understand or don't know, I'll try to get an understanding or knowledge. I try to let people know that we'll get back to them, and be factual. Be as honest and factual as you can when you respond. And if you've made a mistake or your organization has made a mistake, don't double down. Deal with it and move forward. I have determined that if you make an honest error of omission or commission, unless it's so egregious that it's something you absolutely should have known better, then most people will accept your explanation and respond in a way that will allow them to trust you even more. But if you make a deliberate error, if you knew something was wrong and you did it anyway, and you got caught, there's a certain amount of disingenuousness and dishonesty there that people figure out and they understand. I think a few years ago we were chided for the number of vehicles we had. Some of those vehicles, or very few, were for professional transportation of faculty and staff. But we had CDL trucks, fire trucks, ambulances for paramedicine, etc. And I invited the reporter to come to campus, and I said, let's just see the vehicles that we have that have license tags on it. And I'll tell you what every vehicle does. I may have wanted to say some things there that were not that may have gotten my point across, but it wasn't going to help me the next time.
Yeah.
Or we had a student once that was protesting because we couldn't teach a class because we didn't have a pharmacy technology instructor who was a licensed pharmacist. And we said to her, I said to my staff, make sure she's got a cooler with cold water in it, give her an Albany Tech umbrella, give her a chair to sit in so if in July it gets too hot, and allow her to protest. When the media gets here, allow them to interview her. I'll talk to them. And why did you close the program for 3 months? Because we didn't have a faculty member. I wish we did. What about the young lady? We're not angry with her. We just want to allow her to determine what's the best way to express her First Amendment rights. But you do need a moment to breathe in and breathe out and determine how you're going to answer the questions. And as I said earlier, I learned to emulate people who could do it better than I could, and then what fit my personality, I tried to adapt.
Excellent tenets of a great leader. Thank you. You need to document that sir? And
I think some of it I got in a graduate class. I don't know. I don't know what grade I made, but
I'm sure
you
did
had to say
exceedingly well. Thank you for all of that wealth of knowledge and in-depth insight into the great man that we know that has been a huge pillar, a great pillar in this community, and certainly even at the state level. I'm always excited to be in your company and to hear the words of wisdom that you're going to dispense. You have a running joke that I love in terms of you not being able to tell time, and so we're very grateful of your inability to do that. It has impacted not only institution, but again, higher education within this community. So we're excited to see what the future unfolds.
Stay tuned. It's been a great community to live in.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Parker, for joining me today. It's a pleasure.
All right.
Viewers, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I look forward to seeing you next time.